If you enjoy watching Common Ground online, please consider making a tax-deductible donation at lptv.org. Lakeland Public Television presents Common Ground, brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota. Hi, welcome to Common Ground. I'm your host, Scott Knudsen. In this follow-up to Rock Hounds, follow faceter Chuck Durnan's process as he cuts a semi-precious stone.
I'm Chuck Durnan, and I'm what the gem and mineral hobby calls a faceter. It's a man who facets gemstones and cuts gemstones. Today we're at my home here in Park Rapids, Minnesota, and we're having a lot of fun doing this. It's kind of a joy to be able to share my hobby with you. Move this up on the mast now because we're going to start cutting. What I've done is rounded the stone to the size that I want it to be when we set the stone, and the finished piece of jewelry is now going to be that size, a finished stone. And I'm going to change the angle here to the 56 degrees, which is where I'm going to cut my first set of facets. And we have to move this in closer so that when we come down, it comes against the lap at 56 degrees. And I go beyond the 56 degrees, so when I come back this way, it'll come down, it'll touch the lap. And it bounces back to this side. Then I lock this in place. Now when I bring the stone down against the lap and my dial comes back to 0, that facet will be cut at exactly 56 degrees. So what we've done is we've cut this facet now at that angle. You can see the angle on the stone here. That's the 56 degree angle that we cut. And we're going to cut it till the top of this comes close to the center of the stone, reminding that we're going to put more facets on this as we go. This is the bottom of the stone we're working on. And the reason I always start with the bottom of the stone, the gentleman that taught me how to facet explained it to me very simply. Most of the facet diagrams that are out nowadays will tell you to cut the crown of the stone, which is the top of the stone, first. When you cut the top of the stone first, you may not have enough stone in the pavilion or the bottom of the stone to do the bouncing of the light that you want to come back to you. Therefore, you make wrong angles on the bottom and you don't get the light bouncing back in through the stone. So he taught me to cut the bottom of the stone first, so we're sure to get the proper angles on the bottom where the light is reflected. And that then puts the stone, a brilliant stone, as it gets done. So that's why I always cut the bottom of the stone first, and we'll switch to the top at a later time. But right now I got the first 56 degree angle cut, and what I'm going to do is rotate these around. This index gear right here is calibrated. It's got 96 different stops on it, and that goes all the way around 360 degrees and comes to the 96 again. Now if we're going to put 16 facets on, because I put 16 sides on the stone, to put 16 facets on it, you have to go every 6 spots. On here, we're going to go and cut another 56 degree facet. And you can see as we cut and as we grind this away, it comes down to the 0 mark. This one moves to 0. When it gets to 0, that facet is cut at 56 degrees. So now you can see on here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 facets cut already. And we'll just keep going around the stone at every 6-point interval. And reminded now all we're doing is cutting the coarse grinding on this. This will get done again and again in order to get it down to the smoothness that we need. So now all 16 facets are cut to the same height, or very close to the same height. If you look at the girdle going around, they're close to the same size, same place. Remember that this is coarse grinding, and the next step here is going to be to coarse grind 16 other facets. and I'll facet them down until they just about touch the girdle. And what I'm going to do then is we'll switch to a fine grind, and I'll go back and redo the first ones, and then I'll redo the second ones, and then we'll do a third and fourth step with the fine grinding, because that's going to be on the very tip of the stone. We don't need to grind a lot of excess material away after we get down to this point. So now I'm at the 0, and I've got more of it cut away, and I don't know if you can see this on the stone or not. We've got a second kind of a horseshoe shape of angle coming down that'll eventually come all the way down to the girdle. Now I'm going to move to the other facets. I'm going to go all the way around now and take them all down to 0, and they're going to be that close all the way around. And I'll show you what I mean when it gets to be a pointed facet coming in there rather than that odd round shape that's there. I'll cut a number of them here, and then I'll stop and show you what we've accomplished. Okay, now you can see there's a whole series of them on the stone. And they look like there's little triangles left on the bottom. When we fine grind this now, they'll take that triangle, we'll bring that all the way down to right to the girdle line. When we say we're gem cutters, we're not really gem cutters, we're gem grinders. It's a closer explanation, I guess. I'm looking at this now to see where those facets are coming down. And you can see they're not all exactly the same size, but they're very close, and they're all coming down close to the girdle. So we'll have little facets left at the bottom at the girdle line, and then this is the next set of facets that goes in. And there'll be more facets on top of this yet when we get it done. So we'll be going around again and again. But we're going to switch now from the coarse lap, which is the coarse grinding one. We're going to switch and go to a fine grind. And we'll start, that's actually going to be a semi-polish is basically what it amounts to. Now we got to get the water on the lap here and get that leveled out. If you don't put water on here and keep that lubricated, it'll actually end up cracking some stones. And I've reset that to 56, so now we're going to come down here and we're going to put these facets on. And we're going to make all these little ones that we have at the bottom are all going to be semi-polished when we're done with this part of it. Just bring this down and we'll go right to 0. Now this is taking off a little bit more of the stone, and it's going to change that girdle line just slightly. We'll get it right down to 0. And you can see already on this first one that it's now got a semi-polish to it. I designed this cut, and it took me about 8 hours to design it on paper in order to make sure that I had the proper angles and made it look right. And when we get done with the finished stone, you'll be able to see why I'm very excited about this. It'll have a tremendous amount of facets on it, which gives it a tremendous amount of sparkle and bounce, and it's just going to be a very, very brilliant stone when we're finished with it. Right now we're going around and we have 16 sides, and we're going to cut a whole lot of facets on the stone, both on the top and the bottom. When I got done with the first stone that I cut a blue topaz the first time, and when I got that done, I looked at it, and I'm sitting here, and since you design the cut, you can name the cut, and it has so much fire and bounce, I called it Northern Lights. It's something that's really dear in my heart, and it's something that I've worked very hard to accomplish. The old guy that taught me how to facet told me, you're not a real gemstone faceter until you design your own cut and actually cut it and have it turn out looking good. And I was able to show him this before we got to the point where he died this last winter, but we actually got this cut designed before he passed on. So Lyle, this is to you. I'm very happy that you encouraged me to do this. Well, we're going to change the mass now. We're going to go back to the other facets, which are at 39 degrees. So we'll turn that off for a minute. Readjust this to 39. Raise it up again. Get it on the right index setting. Raise it up. And we'll bring it back down again to the proper level. And we'll come down until it just touches the lap. And we're going to stop right there because I don't want to go too far with this. Now these facets, when we do these, the ones that are still kind of the rough color up on top here, they're going to turn out to look more like these polished ones when we get down there. I'm going to take each one of those individually and bring them down, but I'm going to cut them all the way down until the tip of them touches that girdle line that goes around what we call the girdle of the stone, which is the center of the stone all the way around. So I'll start with one and then I'll try to show you what happened to it. This is going to take a little bit because I have to adjust here again every time. And you may notice that I look at the stone a lot more than I just go around now because we're into the final parts of actually getting the stone to look good. The first part of it was just rough grinding. We weren't so concerned about the facets being exactly even and all that. Now we're going to get into the finer points of this, and as we do this, I'll be looking at each facet as I go around, not just trusting to the dial, it's accurate to a thousandth of an inch, but I'm going to trust my eyesight as well to make sure that we get all these placed just exactly right. And the reason that you put a semi-polish on is when you go to actually polish, you're going to get a mirror finish on it. That mirror finish is very important, especially on the inside of the stone, because when you come into a stone with a light, consider our light source is at the bottom here shooting into the stone. This is upside down from what a stone would be, because this is the bottom of the stone. Right now it's on top. But the light source that you will look at when you're looking at a finished stone will come in the top. The light beam goes down in and bounces off the sides of these facets, off the mirrored insides of those facets, and bounces back out to your eye. That's what gives the brilliance of the stone. Bear in mind that every time that this light enters the stone, whenever light goes from air into any material, whether it be water or stone or whatever, it bends, and that's called refraction. What you have to know about light refraction is that each of the stones, whether it's in the beryl family or the garnet family or the quartz family, each of them has a different angle that it bends that light at as the light enters the stone. It also bends it again, you got to remember, when it comes back out of the stone into the air and then to your eye. So you're going to bend that light a number of different times. So if these angles are not cut correctly on the bottom of that stone for that particular type of stone, the light will go in, and it may go in this way and then bleed off to the side, and it may go right straight through those facets out into the air on the bottom of the stone and not reflect back to your eye. Everything has its own angle to get that light reflection back from the refracted light. I'm at the point where I got one facet here just about down to the girdle. And I'm going to take that down to the girdle with this particular thing, I think. So, and right there it reads 0. Now let me see. If you overcut that facet right there now and go all the way down into the girdle line, you've now established a new girdle line, which means you have to redo every facet on the stone. Obviously with this stone, 145 facets, you don't want to make that mistake on the last facet, because you'd have to do 144 of them all over again. So I'm usually pretty careful when I'm doing this, trying to get that first one right. The rest of them will come very close, and then it's just a few touches more and you can get them done. I think if you look at this now, you'll see that the corner of this top flat facet that I'm working on, this one right here on top, is right down to the girdle. That point of that facet is meeting this point of this line coming up from the girdle. They're right on each other. So now we've got this preset now. We're set to the angle we're going to be cutting at. And we know pretty well where it is. We're just going to go around the stone, and I'm going to cut them until this says 0. Now you can see the second one is just about down here at this point, and this third one has almost disappeared, but as we go around the stone, those will all come together and they'll all make those little triangles again. It looks like you're cutting the whole thing away and you're not actually getting the facet cut that you want, but they are there. It's just a matter of getting them in the right place and cutting them far enough. You can see now this next facet is coming in. The little triangle is kind of off-shaped. He's not really an equilateral triangle. You want to get him to be equal, like this first one was. So you just keep going around and keep doing them. There's a chart in a book that talks about the angles that are called critical angles. The angle that you don't dare go beyond if you're actually cutting the stone. The critical angle, like for quartz, the critical angle is, I think it's 41. But if you go beyond that, you end up with that facet being at too flat an angle, and then you won't get the light reflection back. And each stone has that different critical angle. That's what we were talking about with the light refraction and the different stones and all that. The light bouncing off those facets has to be at the right angle in order to get it back out to your eye. Coming down to the 0 point again. I never cut beyond the 0 point. I'd rather have to change that 0 point than to cut beyond it. Now we go to the next one. It also tends to cut a little faster if I move the stone back and forth across the lap, because you're getting The water actually erases or moves some of the stuff you're grinding off the lap. And so if I move back and forth like this, it ends up touching diamond all the time instead of bouncing around on top of the stuff I'm already cutting off. I don't know if you can see those now or not. The little first facets I put on are now just tiny little triangles right along the edge of the girdle. My second set of facets is coming down on top of those, and as we move around you can see here where this one has almost disappeared. But when I cut it back in, it'll come down and it'll make a triangle out of this one. So this next one, right now it looks like a inclined plane instead of a triangle. So this one's now a triangle, and the one next to it has now become an inclined plane. So when I cut the next facet, it's going to come back to a triangle. When we get to the very end, the very last one, we'll complete the whole circle around, and it'll all be triangles at the base of this. So all these little triangles will be all the way around, and the whole second set of facets will be pre-polished. You can see why this takes some time. I figured it out one time, the stones that I take to the craft shows, if I averaged someplace around 5 to 6 hours a piece, I have about 1,500 to 1,600 hours worth of work on just my faceted gemstones on display. So there's a lot of time invested in this hobby. In order to cut this stone, it would take approximately 10 hours. And I want to get through these parts with this so that you can actually see what's happening a lot faster than that. I'm going to skip part of what I'm doing now, and I'm going to jump to the next row of facets, or the next group of facets. And I'll show them on the one side of the stone where the other side is going to stay where I was. I'll go back to this later and finish the stone up. But I want to give you that next row of facets so that you can see what we're doing. This next row will be set at a different angle, and I have to change all the settings again in order to do it. This next set of facets is going to be at 35 degrees instead of 39. So we keep moving down to actually shorten up the depth of the stone in order to get those facets to lay in there. So we go to 35 degrees on this next set. And we change the indexing again back to our original long numbered bars in order to offset against the ones that we just did. So we did the first set, and then we offset the second set, and now we're going to go back to the original setting for the third set. And then when we go to the fourth set, we'll be offset again by that little number difference on the scale. You can see the facet that I'm currently cutting is this one right here, the flat one, and it's coming down along this ridge line. You can see that little line in between. That's because it's now offset, so it's coming right down that line, and it'll come down until it meets the tip of the little triangle down at the bottom. So we got the first one went all the way to the girdle. This next facet now comes down to the tip of the triangles as we go around. I'll run this down and see if we can get to where it touches that triangle. I went too far. So you see now where this facet, I overcut this one, and it came down to meet the triangle, but it actually took the tip off the triangle. It's actually gone just a little bit too far. It's actually, instead of stopping at the very apex of that triangle, it actually cut into the triangle, put a little flat top on the triangle. This is one of the things that happens, and one of the things I've tried to guard against is going too far, because if you go too far, you got to go back and recut. And that's what's going to happen with this stone now. I'm going to have to go back and recut. It's got to come down just to the top of that triangle. The next set of facets would come down along the edge of that one until it touched the top of the, when these other ones get cut in, there'll be a kite-shaped facet in there, and it'll come down until it just touches the top of that kite. What you've got to do is obviously go back and recut the stone. Now it doesn't take as long to recut the stone, because actually I'm going to start right away with the facets at the bottom. We'll establish a new girdle line going around. Okay, so I'm not going to have to cut all that excess material away. I'm just going to go right back to the facets that we cut. And what it does is reestablishes the girdle line slightly lower, and I'll have the whole set of triangles again, and we'll rework down to the triangles and down to this facet again before we have a problem with it. We're going to now transfer this stone. We went back and we recut, and we've done everything that we need to get this stone recut. We're going to put it on a transfer jig and transfer it over. And what we've done now is we put glue into the cone-shaped top on this end, and we've actually pushed the stone together in there so that that cone end goes down in, and now that's glued. So now all of these are glued together into one piece. And we go to the torch and we heat this stick up just enough to loosen the glue, and then it comes apart and we'll have the stone on the cone-shaped dop so we can cut the top. You can see the girdle line on the bottom, see the facets on the bottom here. Now we're going to cut the facets on the top. So now here we are ready to start cutting the top of the stone. Now, this has got just about the same number of facets as the bottom of the stone, so it's going to take us some time to do it. Put it into the chuck, tighten the chuck up so the stone is locked in there securely. It's glued on, we're ready to go on that, and we have a different set of angles. So our angles for the crown, the first one is going to be 55. If you remember, we were 56 on the pavilion of the stone in order to get the light to bounce back. The first angles on the crown are going to be at 55 to help reflect the angles around inside that stone. So now we're going to go to 55 degrees, set it at 55, and once again we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to take it and bring it down until it touches the lap, and when it touches the lap we stop it and lock it in place. And now we'll turn the water back on to lubricate. And we set this at 96 and we'll start cutting the top of the stone. And we'll keep making adjustments here until we get to where we match up with the girdle. So here we are again. You can see this is the facet that I'm cutting right now, the one that's kind of piece of the crystal that broke off. I'm cutting this one down, and what I'm going to do is cut that until this little flat line at the bottom comes right down to the close to the girdle. We'll leave just a little tiny line in between, which will be the girdle itself. So I'm going to cut that down. And it's the same process. You go and you look and you go and you look and you look and you look and you look, because you want to make sure that you get them right. First one always takes the longest because you're cutting the most of the material away with the first cut. From that point on, you're cutting less material. Now you can see on here, this is the facet that I'm cutting now. You can see when you come down here, you've got a little narrow girdle at that point where the bottom facets from the stone and the top facet of the stone, they don't exactly meet perfectly, because if you don't leave a girdle line when you go to set the stone, it'll very easily chip that edge. So you got to leave a little thin girdle around that stone that the prongs of the setting will actually come up over it. The first facet came down and gave us a girdle line here. You can see the girdle is where the top facets meet the bottom facets, and we have just a little thin line of stone in between there that is not cut right to each other. The idea is to have that little girdle there so that the prongs of the setting have a place to go. When you look at the second one that I'm doing now, it's coming down, it's got a flat spot here. That flat spot will come down until it matches exactly to the first one, and so on all the way around the stone. So now basically we've got that first one cut, we got the second one cut. Now it becomes repetition all the way around the stone. Again, we got to do 16 of them around in order to get the girdle line established. And then we'll move on to the second set of facets and the third set of facets, etc. So it's the same technique to the top of the stone as it is to the bottom of the stone until we come to the crown. We're getting there. We're getting the facets all the way around. This would go faster if I went to a coarse lap and actually took some of the surplus stone off again. The problem with that is that, as you already saw, on the bottom of the stone I was using fine lap and made a mistake. I had to go back and recut. Grinding faster lap, the heavier one that would cut it away faster, would take this down so fast that I might make that mistake again. And I don't really want to do that at this point because I've already got half this stone cut. If I overcut into the girdle, that means that not only do I have to redo the top and make a thinner girdle if possible. If I can't make a thinner girdle, I have to actually go back and recut the whole bottom of the stone. So I'm just going to take my time with this and just take the sweet time that it takes to get it done. And if it takes the 10-hour time limit, that's the way it's going to be. When this stone is finished, you're going to find that I told you it had a lot of brilliance and a lot of bounce. I may not have the opportunity to get this totally finished right now, but I'm going to show you exactly what I've done with the same type of stone, exactly the same cut, exactly the same color and everything. I have a piece of amethyst here that I did cut and finished up, and it's right here. And it's hanging on a necklace already. This is the finished product. We finished putting all the facets on it, and then we had to go back and we had to polish this. So each of those facets gets another time on the lap is with a polish compound, and that polish compound will actually make them shine all the way through. Generally, this cut that I've done and designed is better in light colored stones than it is in a dark colored stone, because the light doesn't reflect through the stone as much. But if you look at this one, there's 145 cuts there that are reflecting that light. That's the Northern Lights cut that I designed. It's a very, very beautiful stone when you get everything going together right with it. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've wanted to really, I guess maybe I was born to be a teacher, but I ended up in the grocery business. And I really see myself as teaching more people to facet. And if you look at our website when you get there, you're going to find that I've already had my grandson, who's 13 years old, has cut his first stone, and he promptly gave it to his mother as a gift. She is at the point where she's wanting to learn as well. We're going to teach her, and I'm already teaching the grandson. I plan to pass this down to the next generations.
Thank you so much for watching. Join us again next week for another episode of Common Ground. If you have an idea for a Common Ground piece that pertains to North Central Minnesota, email us at legacy@lptv.org or call us at 218-333-3014. To view any episode of Common Ground online, visit us at lptv.org. To order episodes or segments of Common Ground, call 218-333-3020. Common Ground is brought to you by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people November 4th, 2008. If you enjoyed this episode of Lakeland Public Television's Common Ground, consider making a contribution at lptv.org.